Her name was Judith, but everybody called her Judy. But the name that she liked best was Yehudit, because that was the name that her grandmother, who she called her Bubba in the Yiddish language, the language of the Jews from Eastern Europe, what her Bubba used to call her. And she lived in a cold water tenement on Wentworth Street. Does anyone know where Wentworth Street is?
Yep.
Oh, great, fantastic. My mother knows where Wentworth Street is because my mother grew up on Wentworth Street in a cold water tenement in the 1930s, when almost all the people around Whitechapel and Spitalfields were Jews from Eastern Europe, many of them refugees, just like Judy's Bubba, who had come from Belarus as a widow with just her one daughter. And Judy was very sad the day when her Bubba passed away, because she loved her Bubba very much. They used to share a sofa bed in the living room. It wasn't a house, it was a flat that had just 2 bedrooms. Her parents slept in one, her 2 older sisters in the other, and she used to share the sofa bed in the sitting room, dining room with her Bubba. But she always remembered her Bubba because her Bubba used to sing her songs when she couldn't sleep and sing lullabies to help her sleep. A couple of years after her Bubba died, Judy was on her way to Mrs. Levy's house. Mrs. Levy lived up towards Spitalfields, and Mrs. Levy was a seamstress. Many of the people, the Jews of the East End, worked in the rag trade, as we call it, the garment industry. And a seamstress was somebody who sewed dresses and shirts. Mrs. Levy was a very good seamstress and could actually do custom jobs for ladies who could pay a little bit more. And Judy would go there to earn a few pennies on a Thursday night to help clean up the workroom and the flat before Shabbat came in on Friday, the Jewish Sabbath. And as Judy was walking up Commercial Street, she noticed that there was no one around and all the shops were boarded up, and wondered why this was. And when she arrived at Mrs. Levy's house, she knocked on the door. Mrs. Levy came to the door, and Mrs. Levy said, "Judy, what are you doing here?" And she said, "Mrs. Levy, I've come to do the cleaning." Mrs. Levy said, "Judy, haven't you heard? Basher Briggs has escaped from Pentonville prison. You do know who Basher Briggs is, don't you?" Well, everybody knew who Basher Briggs was. He was a horrible man. He was a criminal. He was a robber. He used to extort money from all the stall holders. He used to beat people up if they didn't pay him money, and he was always drunk. And one day he went too far and hit a policeman, and he had been arrested and put into Pentonville prison. But somehow he'd broken out. He'd come back to take his revenge on the people of the East End, particularly the Jews of the East End, because he hated them. "Judy, you'd better go home straight away. Just run as fast as you can until you get home. Oh, and remember, if you happen to see a large man, I hope you know some prayers." "But I don't know any prayers." "Well, in that case, you'll just have to go home as quickly as you can." So Judy set off, walking down the empty streets through the fog. I don't know if anyone remembers the fogs that used to be there before the Clean Air Act. Too young. And as she was walking down the street, she saw her cousin Mottle. And Mottle said to Judy, "Judy, what are you doing? Haven't you heard the news? Basher Briggs has broken out of Pentonville prison. He's come to take his revenge on the Jews of the East End. You have to get home straight away." And she said, "Yes, I know, I'm on my way." And he said, "But if you see him, do you know any prayers?" And Judy said, "No, I don't know any prayers." He said, "Well, do you know the Shema?" Well, of course I know the Shema. The Shema is this one prayer that every Jew has to know. Shema Yisrael. It's the Yisrael, the ancestor Jacob, who gave his name to the Jewish people. The one prayer that every Jew must know. And Mottl said, well, it's good you know that, because that's the prayer you have to say before you die. And at that, he went off in the opposite direction, and Judy kept going. And she realized she was coming down towards Wentworth Street. She was nearly home. But she looked round, and she thought through the fog she could see a figure coming behind her. She heard the footsteps. And she looked round, and it was indeed a very large man. So she thought, I'll just go down this alley and I can cut through to the other side. But she didn't remember that that alley was a dead end, and she went to the end and she saw some boxes. She hid herself among the boxes and she looked towards the end, and through the fog she saw this large man, unmistakably the dread form of Basher Briggs himself. And he looked and he said, "Who's there? I could see you. You can't run from me, little girl." And he started walking towards her. And she hid there, and she hoped she wouldn't see him. She hoped he wouldn't see her. And she thought, I have to say a prayer. She couldn't remember any prayers, but she began to remember a tune, a lullaby that her Bubba used to sing to her. Die, 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 die. Die, 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 die. Die, 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 die. And as she began to sing the tune, she began to remember just some of the words. She couldn't remember all of them, but she sung it as well as she could. Hashem, Hashem, Elokei Yisrael, Mimini, Michael, Umismor Gabriel, Umilfana Uriel, Umechora Raphael, Viarashi, Shekinachel. And Billy Briggs stood there and looked at her, his face red with anger. But as she sung the words of the song, his face went from red to white, and he froze, and he began to shake, and he looked to her left, and he looked to her right, and he looked behind her, and he looked down towards her feet, and he looked up, and he turned, and he ran, and he fell, and he ran, and he fell again, and he ran right to the end of the alley, into the arms of 15 police officers who were out looking for him. But they didn't have a chance to catch him, because in a moment he was banging on the doors of the police van. Let me in! Let me in! They're after me! 4 of them! Big, massive, huge geezers! Oh, they're killers, they're murderers! They're going to get me! They're going to... Please take me back to Bentonville! Please, I won't do it again! Please take me back! Take me back! Slap the cuffs on! Anyway, the police were amazed. They were ready for a big fight, but they opened the doors and he just threw himself in. And then, out of the alleyway, emerged Judy. And they all burst out laughing. "Billy, you scared of a little 9-year-old Jewish girl?" Well, the van drove off with Billy and it took him back to Pentonville prison. And one of the policemen, E.C. Cooper, said, "Well, I suppose I better walk you home, little girl." So he walked her just a little way back to Wentworth Street, took her to the bottom of the stairway that led up to her family's house, family's flat. And he said, "Shall I take you up?" And she said, No, please don't. You'll only scare my mummy and daddy." So Judy went up on her own. She knocked on the door. Her mummy let her in. She was in the middle of cooking. She said, "Oh, thank goodness you're home. Have you heard the news?" And Judy said, "Yes, I've heard the news. I'm safe. I'm fine." And Judy's mother said, "Go and say hello to your daddy. He'll be worried about you too." So she went over to her daddy, who was sitting there at the kitchen table, poring over one of his holy books. He looked up, he gave her a kiss. He didn't seem so worried. Judy said to her daddy, "Daddy, you remember that song that Bubba used to sing me?" What song was that? The one that began, Hashem, Hashem. Of course. It's the song we call the angel prayer. He went to the shelf. He took down a book. Hashem, Hashem, Elokei Yisrael. In the name of the God of Yisrael. Mimini Michael. On my right, the archangel Michael. Umismoli Gabriel. On my left, may there be the archangel Gabriel. Umilfanai Uriel. In front of me, may there be Uriel, the bearer of God's light. Me'achorai, Raphael. Behind me, may there be Raphael, the bringer, the source of God's healing. You see, Judy, your grandmother was a very kind lady. When she was out on the streets in Petticoat Lane and she saw somebody who was poor, even if she had no money, she would hand them a bagel or something to eat. And when she died, she really left nothing behind. She had no wealth, except perhaps for this Siddur, this prayer book. And of course, the greatest kindness of all, the song that she left you, that you can remember, and the prayer that you can say so that you can feel safe whenever you feel in danger. And of course, the most important part of the prayer is the last verse. Vial Roshi Shekinit Kel. That when you say this, you call on God to protect you from above with his divine presence. Oh, and don't you want to know what happened to Basher Briggs? Well, he got found guilty at the Old Bailey. He got 5 years, 3 years with good behaviour. But when he came out, so I hear he was a reformed character. I even heard that Mrs. Levy got him a job at Fieldgate Street Synagogue as a caretaker. But that's another story.